Well, today I'm going to continue with what Robert and Dan have already introduced you to. But I'm going to take a little bit of a different tact. And first I have to explain the different tact. Our division, the Division of Radiological Health in CDRH, we can, in my vernacular, can catch hell from time to time from our drug colleagues, from our NIH colleagues, and in my particular case, from the ASCO, the American Society of Clinical Oncology. And they're all complaining about the same thing. They're complaining about the 510K process, and they're complaining about the tool claim that you've heard about, and then I'll bore you with further. That's what they're complaining about. They're basically saying that those two elements of our regulatory repertoire in CDRH prevent clinical trials. We don't do a lot of clinical trials because we have tool claims. We don't do a lot of clinical trials because we have 510Ks. And I'm going to try to defend us a little bit here and introduce this to you so that you can help change their thought processes. So, in outline, I'm also going to use linear accelerators. I'm kind of intimidated in the land of linear accelerators doing this here, but I'm going to try to do it anyway. So I'm going to give you a review of radiation therapy regulation, a very superficial, and I'm going to talk again about intended use and indications for use, and pre-market approval of devices. I'm not going to talk much about the PMA process, but I am going to talk about 510K, and I'm going to show you my little pros and cons table that I tried to use to defend myself at ASCO a few months ago. So in general, class 1 are the devices. I've given you an example. This is the regulation for this particular device, and these are light beam patient position indicators, those little lasers that we all have in the treatment rooms or in imaging rooms. Those things are class 1. They're not regulated. They're only regulated. They're our easiest class of regulation. We don't. The only thing we get from these people, for the most part, are things like registration and listing of these devices. But if you go off and innovate with one of these, and you make it computer controlled, or you have it being talked to or talks to a treatment planning device, it doesn't stay at class 1. It actually can go to class 2. It can end up being a subpart underneath linear accelerators. Class 2, this is the 510K class. Medical charge particle radiation therapy systems, 892-5050. That's where, again, this is the regulation for medical charge particle radiation therapy systems, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But in class 2 is also remote controlled radionuclide applicator systems. Those are class 2. As a matter of fact, just about all radiation therapy devices are class 2. There's one, actually two. There's one really that is still class 3. And I'll talk about that right now. And that one are the radioactive microspheres, the therospheres and the surspheres. They're class 3. This is our highest class of regulation. This is the PMA group. These, we don't have a lot of information on this class, so it gets our strongest review. Right now, Radioactive microspheres are the best example of the class 3, the PMA devices. But also hyperthermia. The hyperthermia devices of the 70s and 80s, the BSD, that's a PMA as well. So some portions of hyperthermia are a PMA and some are not. Some of the superficial applicators that people may still be using for therapy are actually class 2. And this is your world, and this is radiation therapy's world. And 892.50.50, medical charge particle radiation therapy systems, class 2. This is the regulation, and here are all the classifications of the devices that you use or you work with, at least that have something to do with ionizing radiation. I'm gonna blow up this one a little more, but this is all the devices, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this one. When you look at 892.50.50, there's a number of subclasses. The product code is FDA's little internal 3-letter code to break this, in this case, 50/50 into finer degradations. You can see IYE, linear accelerator, accessory film dosimetry. The other one that is high on everybody's list right now, LNH, radiation therapy for charged particles. So all of these are all under 892.50.50, and they're all class 2. They're all regulated through the 510K process. So the 510K process, that class 2 process that I was talking about, this is the mechanism a manufacturer uses to see how FDA is going to regulate their device. If they come in with a new device and they come in with a 510K and they say, this is my device, it's the same device or very similar device that Varian produced, so we're claiming that's a predicate. And FDA can say, no, it's not a predicate. And or we can say, yes, we agree with you, this is the predicate. So this is one way that FDA uses to establish how we're going to regulate medical devices. In the case of linear accelerators, as I said, we're using the 510K process. Remote afterloaders, the 510K process. Proton accelerators, the 510K process. They're all 510K process. So a 510K-able device has to be substantially equivalent to a legally marketed predicate device. And any established special controls that were used for the predicate device, the subject device has to abide by as well. So 510K substantial equivalence means the new or subject device compared to the predicate device has the same intended use, has the same technological characteristics, or has different technological characteristics that do not raise different safety and effectiveness, and the data demonstrates the device is as safe and as effective as the predicate device. That's the official paradigm for the 510K process. So that's what substantial equivalence means. And what this means for all of our devices, all of our radiation therapy devices, at least all the ones that I was just shown, they used this process. They compared, the manufacturer compared their device to a predicate device. And in some cases, linear accelerators, they've been doing this for a long, long time. And it's now we get into that tool claim where it gets our division in trouble. So the intended use, again, means the general purpose of the device or its function and encompasses the indications for use. The indication for use describes the disease or conditions the device will diagnose, treat, prevent, cure, or mitigate, including a description of the patient population for which the device is intended. That last little phrase is an important phrase. The indication the indications for use and the intended use may be the same for devices with general indications for use that do not specify a disease condition or population. Intended uses of many radiation oncology devices are very general. We've been using them a long time to treat cancer patients. The tool claim. So this is the second element that DRH, the Division of Radiological Health, gets condemned for. And I'll get to why we're being condemned. We're being condemned because we're not doing clinical studies. If you remember, an oncology drug, they can have hundreds of patients in multi-phases of clinical studies. NIH, when they've complained, and to be absolutely honest with you, the people at NIH who complained about our tool claim and our 510K was the radiation research program. I want to give Vic full credit for doing that. He's put me on the hot seat a couple of times with his complaints. But so devices with general indications for use that do not specify a disease condition or population or anatomical site, the intended use is the same as the indications for use. Here's some examples that I put together, and I think Dan's were better than mine. Scalpels for cutting tissue, it's the same tool for cutting a hand or cutting a leg. Imaging devices for imaging the body, same tool for imaging the hand or the leg. And I took a couple of indications for use right from 510Ks that radiation oncology companies have put together. So X systems are indicated for treatment, planning, and image-guided stereotactic radiosurgery and precision radiotherapy for lesions, tumors, and conditions anywhere in the body when radiation treatment is indicated. That's a tool claim. That's one of radiation oncology's tool claims. So a manufacturer uses this, and the previous manufacturer of the predicate uses this, and there's really nothing. We're not spelling out a specific use. We're saying you can use it for cancer any place in the human body. So that's a legitimate use. We've been using linear accelerators for a long time. Likewise, X is indicated for stereotactic radiosurgery and precision radiotherapy for lesions, tumors, and conditions anywhere in the body when radiation treatment is indicated. Again, that's a tool claim, a general indication for use, nothing wrong with it. But what NIH, ASCO, and the Center for Drugs says is that by using this, we're not adding to the knowledge of how these things can be used. Not true. But that's in general what they're saying. And that's in my phraseology. So if you talk to Vic at NIH or you talk to somebody at ASCO, they may say that they disagree with what I'm saying. But so the 510K, it's a comparison. The tool claim is a general indication for use. These are reasonable claims. But when we review linear accelerators, for example, we do ask for a lot of information, as some of you already know in this room. Like biocompatibility is one thing that we have a tendency to go after. Software, we're always looking at software changes. Electrical safety testing, EMC testing, and all of the dosimetry issues that any good radiation oncology physicist would want to see. So we go after those all the time. We're always looking at that data. And if somebody was to say that we can treat, we have this general indication and we can treat essential tremor, that last phrase will generate some interest in the Division of Radiological Health, the nuclear medicine and radiation therapy branch. That little phrase takes it, as Robert was saying, from the general to the specific. So now we're looking at something specific. So our review scientists start to say, prove it. We need to see that this can be used. Now this is a test of your eyesight. I just thought another issue that we deal with quite a bit with linear accelerators, we try to acknowledge as many standards as possible. It gives the reviewer, our review scientists, it gives them greater confidence once they know that these standards are being used to develop these linear accelerators. And these I think I got them all. I think this is the whole list of standards that we look for with linear accelerators. And so this is my little, and I'm looking for criticism here too. This is my little table. And I was trying to defend us with ASCO when I wrote this table up. And so this is the pros and cons for the 510K for radiation therapy devices. The pros, for using the 510K, it's as safe and as effective as the predicate. It's not getting worse. We know that the way the review is done, it's as safe and as effective. So it's still being reviewed as substantially equivalent. The tool claim compared to the predicate. The tool claim is still being compared to the predicate. If both the predicate and the subject device have the same tool claim, they're going to be used for the same things. And we review the accuracy and precision depth dose profile of both devices. What else does the tool claim do? Don't know if the tool claim puts the devices, and the 510K process puts these devices in your hands, in clinical hands, quicker. The drug side, it takes a long time for them to approve new oncology drugs. They're looking at systemic toxicity and long-term, short-term tox and all kinds of things. So the tool claim and the 510K process put these devices in clinical hands quicker. As I said, we depend on standards, and it increases reviewer confidence, gives a faster review. Time to market for the 510K, as I was just saying, 30 to 90 days. The device is theoretically able to be used in the clinic. And feature creep, I always say this wrong, but feature creep, devices change slightly over time. They do. That's one of the criticisms of the 510K program. That somebody could say a 1978 linear accelerator is the predicate of a true beam. Yeah, really, not so much. You know, most of the review scientists would tell Varian to pick another predicate. Some of the cons for the 510K, you know, in many of these devices, there's minimal clinical data reviewed during the 510K. But it puts the device in your clinical hands quicker. You can actually start to do clinical trials and take a look at and see how useful these devices can be for other things. Specific tumors, locations may need post-market clinical performance testing. That's true. Tool claims not really testing all new indications for use. That's also true. And a real truth is tool claims are not easy for marketing because manufacturer will come in and they'll have a general indication for use, and then we'll go to Astro and we'll find somebody saying that you can use a linear accelerator for toenail fungus treatment or something. And that's going to need we're going to need to see some proof of that. And as I said early on, broad tool claims encourage the practice of medicine testing of these devices. So think about how you can test medical devices. Get your colleagues at FDA off the hook. You know, do clinical studies with new medical devices. It'll make Vic at NIH real happy too. And it'll change the paradigm with the drug folks, because they believe, and there's some truth to it, they do a lot of clinical studies, a lot.
But they're the vendor's skin is in the game.
Yep.
Right? Not the clinician who runs the clinical trials.
Yeah. And now I think I turn it over to, oh, I already talked about this.